Alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to our Mind Weekly Post. Today we will be talking about systems analysis and some details about why it is important. Systems analysis refers to understanding the world through the framework of systems. The follow-up question would be, what is a system? A system refers to a set of components which are interconnected. These components connect with each other to form a unified whole, and they work together to achieve a certain purpose. So we have to make a philosophical distinction here. In case of non-living systems, they work together to perform a function, whereas in case of living system, they work together to achieve a purpose. So this is the philosophical difference that I wanted to highlight before we proceed further. Some examples of systems are, as you can see in the figure, a human body, a political system, a healthcare system, water cycle, and a banking system. So, how do you define a system? A system is defined by three components: the stocks, flows, and behaviors. Stocks. Stocks are the accumulations of resources within a system at any given time. So consider this: water in a reservoir, money in a savings account, or the population of a city. These are all like a collection and accumulation of reserve for a given system. So these are the examples of stocks. So now let's look at the second component that defines the system, and that is the flows. Flows are the rates at which stocks increase or decrease in quantity. Examples are water flowing into or out of a reservoir. The second example can be income and expenses, which basically affects a bank balance. And income increases the bank balance, and expenses reduce the bank balance. So just to give a feel about what it means in terms of flows. The third component that defines the systems are the loops. Loops are of two types: reinforcing loops, and the second is the balancing loops. So reinforcing loops are the positive feedback loops that amplify change within a system. Consider this: the economic growth leads to increased investments, which in turn leads to further production and acceleration in growth. The second type of loop is balancing loops. Balancing loops are negative feedback loops. They tend to stabilize the system by counteracting changes. So example would be a thermostat regulating temperature by turning heating or cooling on or off based on the set temperature in the thermostat. So what does it mean to view a system through systems lens? Viewing things through systems lens means interpreting a complex situation by focusing on the system as a whole along with all its components. So when we see through systems lens, we focus on first interconnectedness, which means we recognize that the components of a system are not independent but are linked and affect one another. The second thing we focus on are the feedback loops, where we understand how outputs of a system influence its input. This might create cycles of either reinforcements or balance. We'll discuss with an example as we go along. Then the third part is when we see things from systems lens, we get holistic perspective, which means we are just not limited to linear cause and effect relationships, but instead focus on patterns, relationships, and dynamics to get a holistic picture of the system. Let's look at an example from physics to get a better feel for the system. Consider a room, say, located in a cold country like Canada during a cold winter season. The room is kept warm by a furnace whose temperature is set by a thermostat. The insulation of the room is not perfect, so some heat escapes outside and the room starts to get cold. The thermostat realizes it and kicks off the heat and brings the temperature to the desired value. So in this system, the stock is the heat in the room. Flow is the heat getting generated by the furnace, which we can also call as an inflow, and the outflow, which is the heat escaping the room. The reinforcing loop here is the difference in the outside and inside temperature, which causes the furnaces to kick in and heat the room when the difference becomes higher. And the balancing loop is determined by the insulation of the room from the outside weather. Poor insulation causes the heat to escape the room, which in turn causes the temperature of the room to drop. So this interaction between the reinforcing and balancing loop will keep the temperature of the room at a desired value with the help of a thermostat. Okay, now let's look at another example, and now from economics. Let's talk about foreign currency reserves of a country as an example. Here the stock is the amount of foreign currency in a given country's reserves. This foreign currency reserve is used in paying for buying foreign goods, that is imports, and is refilled with goods that are purchased by a foreign country from a given country, that is exports. The other aspects of getting foreign reserve is by lending system, lending system. Loans received by a country increases foreign reserves. However, debt repayment and interest payment decreases the reserves. For the purpose of this discussion, we'll drop the lending and focus on just the export and the import and the currency fluctuation. The diagram here gives a clear idea of stocks inflow and outflows. Now let us look at the reinforcing and balancing loop in play in this case of foreign currency reserves. Let's take two countries for simplicity. Let's take US and UK, and I'm taking this example because of the simplicity and referring to their names. Focus on two stocks, i.e. the foreign currency reserves of United States and United Kingdom. The top box represent stock of United States and bottom box represent stocks of UK. Stock as in the foreign currency reserves of UK. So let's take an example where US produces good and UK imports it. This causes reserves to flow out of United States stock into UK's stock. Similarly, when US import things from UK, US dollar reserves are brought back into United States stock. Now, let's imagine due to a technological innovation, US production picks up compared to UK. This creates an imbalance. US is now producing more and UK is importing more from US. So what happens in this scenario? The inflow of foreign currency increases in US and compared to the outflow of currency, which leads to increase in United States foreign reserves, and as more inflow will help US, it will start to become a net exporter and expand its production, thereby creating cheaper goods, cheaper products due to more machines and technological research. What then happens is it will further reinforce the loop, and net United States reserve keeps increasing and net UK's reserve keeps falling. And this is what normally happens when an underdeveloped country deals with a developed country. So, what is the balancing loop here that restores the equilibrium? The balancing loop is the currency depreciation of pound compared to US dollar, which causes UK imported goods in US to become cheaper than US manufactured goods domestically. So as a result, you will see the balancing loop flowing in the opposite direction as shown in the figure with red dotted lines. Eventually, this reinforcing and balancing loop basically settles down to get into an equilibrium where both the countries maintain a steady reserve of other countries' currency. This example might take some time for many of you to understand, especially because it's from the discipline of economics. So you can pause the video at the diagram and think about the reinforcing and balancing loop and the whole scenario to get a feel of this system level analysis. Lastly, I will conclude this presentation by focusing on the importance of viewing things with a systems lens. The first reason is that a big picture systemic analysis helps us in understanding complex issues by considering all the components and their connections and the feedback loops involved. Secondly, by viewing the scenario from systems lens, we can anticipate long-term effects because many systems have delayed and sometimes unintended consequences. For example, when the central bank reduces interest rate to improve economic growth, the effect is not seen immediately. It takes about 3 to 6 months or even longer to observe the intended effect. The unintended consequences of lowering interest rate might be a higher inflation. So, viewing the system through a systems lens helps in understanding all these side effects as well as the intended effects and the delays involved. The third important reason to view things with the systems lens is reductionism, the trap of reductionism. Reductionism is good for thoroughly understanding small components and subsystems, but it becomes a trap because we can miss out on important components and connections and feedback loops. System lens helps us get out of these traps and understand system more comprehensively. System lens helps us understand the low-hanging fruits. This is what is called as leverage points, where relatively small change can produce big impacts. Example of leverage points is increasing the toll during office hours. What it does is it will discourage unnecessary trips during busy hours, thereby reducing congestion. Lastly, it also helps us in improving sustainability of the system by shifting our focus on challenges like climate change, economic inequality, and resource management, which are inherently systemic parameters. So these can be only viewed if you have a good understanding of seeing things through systems lenses. So that wraps up our talk on the brief introduction to system analysis. If you'd like to learn more about systems analysis, we recommend the book Thinking in Systems by Donna Meadows. And if you like this presentation, please share it with your friends and family and subscribe us at Substacks if you haven't already done so. Our Substack can be easily accessed through mindglobal.org. Also, we are looking to improve our presence on Medium. If you have a Medium account, please subscribe us at mindglobal.medium.com and also consider subscribing us on X and Facebook page. Thank you very much for your time.